Let's do some examples figuring out the magnitude of a vector if we're just given some information about it. So one of the simplest cases would be, well, if they just told us the actual components of the vector. So if they said vector A is equal to, let's say, 5 comma negative 3. This means that its x component is positive 5, its y component is negative 3. Well, if we have this, then the magnitude of A is just going to be, and this really just comes from the distance formula, which just comes from the Pythagorean theorem. The magnitude of A is just going to be the square root of the x component squared. So let me do that in a different color. So the square root of the x component squared, so 5 squared, plus the y component squared, so plus negative 3 squared. And this is going to be equal to the square root of 25 plus 9, which is equal to the square root of 34, which is equal to the square root of 34. And if you want to think about this visually, this is very easy to do just looking at the actual components. But if you want to make sense of this, why this is essentially just the Pythagorean theorem, we could draw out a quick coordinate axis right over here. So that's our y-axis. This is our, let's see, I have a y component of negative 3. So let's see, that is our, actually let me draw it a little bit different. Let me draw it like this. That is our x-axis. And we see its x component is positive 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 there. And its y component is negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. And so this is negative 3. And so we can draw this vector with its initial point. Remember, we can always shift around a vector as long as we don't change its magnitude and its direction. We can start it at the origin and make it go 5 in the x direction and negative 3 in the y direction. And so its terminal point will be right over there at the point 5 comma negative 3. And so the vector will look like this. And if we want to figure out the magnitude, that's just the length of this line. And what we can do is just set up a right triangle where our change in y is this negative 3 right over here. That is our change in y. And our change in x is this positive 5. Is that positive 5? And so this is a right triangle. 5 squared plus, you could just view the absolute value of this side as 3. So 5 squared plus 3 squared is going to be the hypotenuse squared. It comes straight out of the Pythagorean theorem.